Right, yeah. Editing.
Welcome back to Bisexual Killjoy, the place where we know bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. I'm Bailey, and this is...
Jace.
All right, folks, we are back in the United States for today's discussion, streaming out of this very closet and into your speakers during LGBTQ+ History Month, and things are feeling very pink, purple, and blue. I'm really excited for today's episode, Building Bi Plus Power in the 90s, because I feel like that was a golden age of Bi Plus organizing, and we can look to that time as inspiration to reinvigorate the movement now. And to help us have that conversation, we are so honored to welcome Barry Saiff.
Hi.
Barry Saiff has spent more than 3 decades shaping Bi Plus history as an activist, organizer, and community leader. He began his bisexual activism in the early 1990s with the Alliance of MultiCultural Bisexals in Washington, D.C., and then went on to co-produce the 1993 National Conference celebrating bisexuality, held alongside the historic March on Washington. With 4 keynotes, 50 workshops, and over 600 participants, it was the largest Bi Plus conference of its time. Barry later served as president of BiNet USA, where he helped secure the funding that made it possible to hire the organization's first executive director, a turning point in national Bi Plus organizing. He has continued to speak at conferences and webinars across the U.S. and internationally, carrying Bi Plus visibility into brand new spaces. Beyond activism, Barry has led a long career in technical communications as a writer, manager, and entrepreneur. He founded Saiff Solutions, a technical writing firm in the Philippines, and currently works as a manager at DocuSign. Barry is also a dedicated volunteer and fundraiser, having raised millions for causes such as the Hunger Project. He is married to his Filipino husband and remains active in progressive organizing, including the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America. Thank you so much for being here with us, Barry.
Thank you. That sounds like I'm a really good person. Wow.
You sent me your bio and I was like, Barry, this is not long enough. You've been in the game for a long time. Yeah, I mean, like, Barry, you have been a part of this Bi Plus conversation for a long time. And it's honestly was really heartening to reach out to the Bi Plus community and to ask about our history and to get a response, not just from you, but from several members who've been in the community for a long time. And on this podcast, especially in this season, we've been talking a lot about how Bi Plus people don't know their history or the legacy that they're part of because sexual orientation oftentimes feels really personal. And not everyone views it as a political sort of thing or a community rallying point. But Jason, I feel like they're all one and the same, especially the further we get down this rabbit hole. And we wanted to start with just how did you first find your way into the movement in the early 90s?
Sure. So personally, I was very confused. So I was born in 1960. So in the 80s, I was in my 20s. And I believe it was when I was 28 that I finally figured out I'm bisexual, right? And up until then, it was very confusing. I didn't know what the hell I was. And part of that self-discovery was the famous book by Fritz Klein, the late Fritz Klein, The Bisexual Option. That really opened up things for me. And I realized, wow, it would have been so much easier for me if I'd even heard the word bisexual when I was a teenager.
Right.
Truly.
It wasn't in the air the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And the only choices were gay or straight, So that's why I got involved as an activist, really, because I wanted to make that more available to people, to people growing up to be able to understand themselves.
Where were you living in the country at that time?
Okay, so I graduated from Princeton in New Jersey, 1983, and I'd lived in New Jersey all my life. I moved in 83 to San Francisco. I thought to go on staff with the Hunger Project, but ended up volunteering and working elsewhere. And then in 88, I moved to Washington, D.C. to start a master's program in international affairs at the School of International Service at the American University because I thought I wanted to become a professor of peace studies. Mm-hmm. That's P-E-A-C-E, not P-I-E-C-E. Mm-hmm. And so I was in D.C. when, I don't know, I guess I'd somehow connected with Bi community, with BiNet USA, with Bi activists. The AMBI, I was the one, I believe, who came up with the name AMBI. And also, briefly, it was IMBI, International Association of Multicultural Bisexuals. But we realized we're not international, so then we made it AMBI. So, yeah, that was a small thing. But then what really kind of juiced it was this opportunity to create a conference, the same weekend as the march. And the thing about the 1993 march was it was not the first gay lesbian march. It was the first one with bi in the name. I mean, I wasn't involved in this, but over the previous 2 years, people I knew were very involved in getting bi into the name. And they weren't able to get bisexual in, just bi, because, didn't want to make it sexual. So we had 4 bi events that weekend. The march itself, there was only one bi speaker, Lani Kaumanu, and she was last. And the only media that was still there when she spoke was C-SPAN.
Oh, yeah.
And the name of her talk was, "It's not over till the fat lady sings."
That is iconic.
We talk about that particular moment a lot on the podcast. And man, they invited the bis, but they made them go last. And they were already packing up the chairs.
I get goosebumps every time I write about it for school or I mention it in class. It's like, how do you not know this iconic piece? It's so brilliant. And I love that you mentioned Fritz Klein, the bisexual option. I remember when I first read it, I had already identified as bi for a while by then. I remember taking it to my professors and being like, see, this is why it's important for it to be an option.
Mm-hmm.
And Klein does a really great job, I think, at capturing through his stories the danger of not having it be perceived as an option, how people are so shy and worry that there is something wrong with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I did. I mean, when I first hit puberty, right, I was really deathly afraid of turning out gay. And somehow I had thought that what mattered was what I was thinking about at the moment that I had an orgasm when I was masturbating. And if I was thinking about a woman, I'd be straight. And I was thinking about a man, I'd end up gay. And so there was all this stress involved, right?
Yeah.
And finally, in my early 20s, I saw a therapist and he said, Barry, it's not something you can decide. You just have to discover it. It's not influenced by that.
I want to walk this back a little bit more. So there's a lot that happens between you realizing that you're bi and then moving to the point where now we're having a conference in Washington, D.C. I think it's really important for our audience to know, and something that people who have been a part of the history forget, is just how many people don't know the steps and the amount of work and effort that goes into planning something like this that has never existed before. So would you mind kind of contextualizing for us, what is the political climate like for not just bi people, but LGBTQ plus people in general before the conference happens in 93?
Right. Well, it was an oppressive environment. I mean, in a different kind of flavor than today, because there wasn't the visibility, right? And there weren't the public voices. There weren't, out. I mean, I don't think there was Ellen or anything like that. There was an earlier conference in DC. We had Ambi did a conference with 100 people in, I think, 92. And I was a part of that. And that was really great. Many of the local activists were opposed to doing the conference in 93 in DC. I think because they felt, look, it's a huge effort and it's going to fall on the local community and it's going to devastate the local community. It's going to destroy us. And, these other people from around the country say they'll help, but they won't to the level needed.
Oh, does that sound familiar at all, Jace?
And really, the ones who were championing the conference were me and my co-producer, Michael Beer, who I'm sure you've heard of. Mm-hmm. He was a key leader at that time. We really championed it, and we were going to go through with it, and others felt like this was very undemocratic and we shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we did it. And it was a massive thing, the 93 conference. Michael handled the stage, like everyone who's speaking on the stage, the keynotes and everyone else. And I basically did everything else. The first part of it was getting a venue. I was a graduate student in American. We ended up using the School of Communication. I believe it was SOC, that building, the Ward Circle building. But we had tried other places. We almost confirmed a nearby high school. And then they decided, no, we can't have an event with bisexual in the name.
Oh.
Even though, it was on a Saturday, so there's not like the students would be there, but still. So Michael and I put together a 12-person national steering committee, which met by conference call. This 12-person steering committee was majority woman. It had representation of people with AIDS, different races, and blah, blah, blah. And that committee made the major decisions. And then also we had a partnership between BiNet USA and the BRC, the Bisexual Resource Center. There was a percentage that each group was going to get from if there were profits. And then Michael and I were going to get a small producer fee. I think it was $500 each or something.
Ooh.
Yeah, really. It was a massive effort. For a year, I spent all my hours out of work basically making this happen. And, there was a lot of dysfunction in the bi community. Not to the level that you saw in 2020 that exploded BiNet USA, but just there was a woman, I won't name her, I don't even remember her name, but she volunteered to be in charge of the entertainment. We had a dance at George Washington University, a bisexual dance, Saturday night. And then there was some kind of reading at some point, and then there was the conference and the march. Well, it turned out that she was an alcoholic or a former alcoholic, and we had several people who were in recovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't want to have any alcohol there. She was like not good with that, and I finally fired her, which is just like a business, a volunteer operation. You got to be able to fire people. After everything happened, we had this meeting to try and resolve some of the conflicts, and she was bawling her eyes out because she was so sad that, she assumed that I would come back and beg her to return.
Oh.
Right. But I was like, no. Yeah, why would I do that? You were a problem, It's like, the other thing I want to say about the conference was the impact on me personally.
Yeah.
So after all that, several things happened right after the conference that together sent me into a depression. And I spent the summer of 1993 fantasizing about suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I never took action toward it. But several of the things that happened. So one was that I was accused of running the conference in a racist and sexist way, which I felt was really uncalled for and unfair. So that really hurt. And then there was a woman whom I'd gotten to know over the past couple of years in the BiNet network. And during all this, I thought I had positive signals from her. And so I took her out to see a play. And the next day I sent her a poem I wrote with a dozen roses, and then didn't hear anything from her for like 3 days. And finally she contacted me and said, look, I think you're a great guy, Barry. I'm just not attracted to you. And also, I just finished my master's degree, and at the same time I was producing the conference, I had done this internship with Nonviolence International, setting up their fundraising, and I'd written a master's thesis. And then all of a sudden, all of that ended at once.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which gave me a tremendous sense of loss.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I had to realize to get out of that period of depression was that all my adult life, I'd been focused on others and on causes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just lost trust in myself that I would ever focus on my own needs.
Mm.
I was in a therapy group, and I remember sharing this image of myself walking up a mountain with a bus on my back filled with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to restore my trust in myself that I could take care of myself. And I did over time.
I feel like this is what bi plus burnout is.
Mm-hmm.
Jace, are you hearing yourself in this story a little bit?
So much. I physically felt it when it's like, well, my master's thesis ended. And it's like, I know to be working towards this one big project. And it's not just that you build it up in your head. I think it's that everybody around you also builds it up. Oh, they're doing this project. They're doing this great thing. And then it's like, it's done. And then where do I go? Mm. And that has a way of heightening all of these other, I want to say, quote unquote, smaller tragedies, tiny tragedies that happen.
Everything feels so big.
Yeah, I just remembered what the topic of my master's paper, I think, was called.
You forgot. Okay, go ahead. Tell us, Barry.
The paper was about the possibility of an international convention on the rights of sexual minorities.
Oh. Wow. Okay, so I actually do want to talk about this in a historical context, because what you're saying, Barry, is highlighting a trend that we are hearing. Mm-hmm. And that is bi plus people, especially those of us who have a lot of capacity or perceive ourselves to, like we're go-getters. We have a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And you just notice all these things that need to get done. You're like, oh, well, we should have a conference and we should be at the march and we should do this. And other people are like nodding, yes, great idea. But you're the only one doing anything. And you just keep going and going and going and going. And then you crash and burn because you can't go forever. Mm. And then you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. If people aren't going to show up for me, I'm not going to show up for them in the same way. Mm-hmm. And it feels sad. We're going to go from 93. We're going to go to BiNet. We're going to talk about beyond. But even in 93, I'm seeing myself in your story. One person steps up and everyone is like, yay, they're clapping for you, but they're not using those hands to help build anything.
Well, I had a tremendous amount of help. It was a huge effort involving dozens and dozens of people. There was that, maybe nobody was putting in as much effort as maybe they were, and I didn't see it. There were moments when I felt seen. And one of the questions was about for me, the highlight of that conference was at the beginning of the conference, I was on stage and kind of setting the context. And what I said to people, to this huge group of hundreds of people, was, there's people here from all over. Let's take care of each other this weekend.
Yeah.
And I really fought for that because the effort of assembling the large group of folks that would address the conference from the stage, they were trying to make it very balanced, representing all these different groups. So, of course, me as a white man, they tried to push me out and I had to fight back against that.
I want to acknowledge the conference itself obviously wasn't just the responsibility of you, Barry.
Mm-hmm.
It takes many very dedicated people. The struggle is finding those people. Like Jace is my person. Jace is the only other like bi plus person around my age that I've met that I'm just like, oh, you're a freak like me. We match each other. I'm just really curious in the 90s, how on earth people were finding each other? Because you just said the internet didn't exist. Like, how were you connecting?
Well, it's not like I recruited all these people. I mean, as I mentioned, in 92, we had a conference in D.C. with 100 people. There was in 87, there'd been a gathering with like 75 people at the Mayflower Hotel that I wasn't aware of in D.C. I wasn't even living there then. And there'd been stuff in San Francisco. And BiNet existed and had folks around the country. They had at that time what was called the sextet, the 6 people who ran BiNet. And then they had regional coordinators and,
Wow.
BRC had activity. Before the internet, people made all these efforts to connect and to network together. So there was a lot of that.
It feels like some kind of poetic justice or joke if a lot of folks in 93 were meeting through volunteer opportunities, and Bailey and I also met through a volunteer opportunity. We just kind of showed up.
Yeah.
That's how these really beautiful events, especially for Bi Plus events, I think happen. There's people who care, and all of a sudden we're in the same place together. And it's like, well, you want to do a thing?
Right. Yeah. I mean, BiNet had started years earlier. I did not start BiNet.
Yeah.
BRC had been going too. Robin Oakes, like every year or two, put out this book which listed international bi-orgs. That was the resource that people used to connect. And there was the internet. It just wasn't the way it is today. It was the beginnings of the internet.
Well, before we talk about the importance of nexus points, we're going to pause and take a word from our sponsor. Hey, Killjoys, we've got big news. The Bi Plus Booking just published its very first anthology, By All Accounts. Now, this isn't just another book. It's a collection of stories, essays, art, and poems from Bi Plus writers from around the world. It's about visibility, identity, joy, and resilience, and it's available in both print and ebook. So if you've been searching for a book that feels like community, this is the one. You can order your copy of By All Accounts today and help us put Bi Plus voices where they belong, front and center. So welcome back.
Thank you.
We are talking to Barry Saiff about Bi Plus community and the history of Bi Plus organizing. We're now getting to nexus points. We're talking about how Bi Plus people have historically found one another. Jace mentioned volunteer opportunities and how that's how we found each other. And honestly, it sounds like Bi Plus people just kind of like show up and show out for the call. And before its collapse in 2020, BiNet USA was the face of Bi Plus organizing in the States. You were the president in the early 2000s in what we would consider kind of like a golden era for Bi Plus activism and organizing. And a lot was getting done. But the majority of our listeners don't know about BiNet. And so for the listeners at home, would you tell us what BiNet was in its heyday?
Sure. So, well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the BRC, Bisexual Resource Center based in Boston, which I've never been very involved in, but friends of mine were. And when I look back, the BRC did a very good job of protecting and sustaining their institution. And that's something BiNet struggled with. BiNet dissolved and reformed many times.
Oh, interesting.
It was very difficult to keep it going. And, for almost its entire life, it's been an all-volunteer organization, and it hasn't had a clear geographic center, right? The whole point was USA, right? So unlike the BRC, we didn't have a core in one place. There were a lot of difficulties, and, there was generally no funding. I had fundraising experience, and so I saw this as actually, to go back, I believe it was August of 2000 or 1999, one of those years, August 15th, Chris Rowling, who'd been one of the sextet in the most recent dissolution of BiNet, or it was the upcoming dissolution, she put out a call to bi activists nationally, come to Austin on this weekend and revive BiNet. And 15 of us came from around the country.
Wow.
I was kind of left holding the bag. One of the things I discovered that weekend was, yes, BiNet had this it had been based on consensus, which is kind of crazy. I mean, there's a lot of logic to it and ideology behind it that resonates with me, but logistically it doesn't work well. And so they have this sextet. But in fact, in order to be an organization, a 501c3, you have to have a president, a treasurer, and all that. There was only one person in the sextet who knew who those people were. They were all members of the sextet. I mean, it was crazy. So I actually, throughout the sextet, put in place a regular structure. And one of the things we accomplished was getting the 501c3 status officially for BiNet USA. That was a huge accomplishment. And Luigi Ferrer helped a lot with that. But yeah, we had like 5 leaders. It was Luigi, it was me, it was Alexei Gurin. Anyway, so I had fundraising experience. And so we did some fundraising. We raised, I don't know, not much, $20,000, $30,000, which was, more than had ever been raised, by a order of magnitude or two. Mm-hmm. And we hired this woman, Venetia Porter, as our executive director. 6 months after we hired Venetia Porter, September 11th happened. And that killed our fundraising and a lot of things. And I remember at the time, I thought it's not going to have a big economic impact, but oh boy, did it, So that kind of dashed that whole thing. But before that, we went to this international conference in Vancouver, British Columbia, and that was amazing. That was wonderful. And I brought 75 hats. I've always been a hat collector because we're going to have a party and people wear hats. And there was a whole problem with customs getting them into Canada and back into the U.S.
They didn't want your hats?
Oh, because they couldn't believe that I wasn't selling the hats.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Anyway, but the Canadians were great. It was an awesome, awesome conference. So yeah, there were these conferences, international ones, every 2 years. I mean, all this stuff didn't happen in a vacuum. There was bi-organizing all over the world. It's just, you had to be in the know, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could just do a Google search. So anyway, you wanted to understand what was BiNet USA like. I mean, a lot of internal conflict, but that's not necessarily what people saw. There was we did advocacy, we connected folks. I mean, I don't know that we had major accomplishments. I mean, we had relationships like with GLAAD, the media group. I mean, they did some great things. Kathy Renna for decades has been one of the most powerful allies the bi community has had. She's been with GLAAD for decades and then on her own. But I mean, she gets bisexuals and how important we are as a part of the community. And she's been a tremendous ally. Yeah.
I would love to backtrack for like a quick second on the importance of raising funds. So far, this whole time that I've been involved with Bi Plus organizing and academia, a big sticking point is the lack of funding and how many of these organizations are entirely volunteer run, and to the point where if we have like one part-time staff, that's the biggest thing. Is there any more that you can speak on the impact of being able to hire a full-time executive director?
Yeah. I mean, it was very short-lived and it was helpful, but it also led to a lot of conflict. I mean, the group of the 5 of us, as it turned out, was kind of dysfunctional. We didn't trust each other fully. And, she and I didn't get along that well. I wish I could remember the things we accomplished. We probably did accomplish a lot, or at least some things. I don't know. So as far as the impact, I don't know. I mean, because it was sporadic and not sustained, I think that'd be a better question to ask of someone involved in BRC.
Oh.
I think they had more consistent funding and support.
It's always funny to hear people kind of like talk about the organization they were a part of and not knowing how important they were, because every Bi Plus organization I talked to are like, losing BiNet was such a blow. Like, we lost BiNet and things haven't been the same. Like, in the 5 years that BiNet has been gone, I think that any Bi Plus group would say we've been really struggling to stay connected to the community, to each other. Even if something like BiNet wasn't doing the conferences or producing the materials, they were kind of like, not the phone tree, but the connecting point, plugging folks in and letting others know what was going on.
Right. I think you're pointing to a very important role of BiNet that we did connect people. We did seek to have regional coordinators in all the regions. Right? We recruited people into leadership positions. We trained them. We connected them. We supported all these different groups. And that was important. Yes. But the thing about fundraising is, so in my early 20s, I raised over $2 million for the Hunger Project as a volunteer fundraiser. And I learned a lot about fundraising. There's 3 rules of fundraising. The first one is ask for the money, which a lot of people don't do. They leave that step out, right? And then also you have to wait for the answer. You have to stop talking. And then the second rule is ask only people who are whole, complete, and able to make a contribution. And the third rule is ask everyone.
Yeah, I think that's something that Bi Plus organizations are bad at. just like full disclosure, I am on the board of the Bisexual Resource Center right now.
Oh, cool.
Something that we are getting better at is just being like, just ask for money. Just be really explicit. Because I find that we tend to minimize our place in the LGBTQ plus community. Like, oh, other people need it more. But I think everyone in this room is more than aware of bi plus health inequity and financial inequity and all this stuff that we struggle with. And we're allowed to have things too. Thinking about BiNet's role in all of this as a connector, and I know you said that there were struggles. What do you think that other organizations could learn from the downfall of BiNet, or just sort of like this dysfunction that you're talking about a little bit?
So a couple things. First is the role of fundraising. And this I learned really from other organizations that, fundraising is not a nice to have. It's like breathing, or it's like a heartbeat. First of all, fundraising equals outreach. And it generates more than money, it generates commitment. I've heard it said that the difference between dreamers and visionaries is visionaries fund their dreams, right? They put their money where their ideals are. And so it's important for everyone to donate what they can financially, right? Volunteering is not a substitute for that. The idea is to own it by funding it. That's how you develop your ownership, by funding it and by asking others to fund it. And when you ask someone for money, they know if you're not giving. They can tell it won't work if you're not personally giving. Now, all of this can be difficult when you put it against the dramatic things that happen in people's lives and their own personal financial ups and downs. I understand that. But that's why you have a community and you support each other, and you need all kinds of people to collectively and individually participate as funders and fundraisers. That's the beating heart of an organization. So that's the first thing. The second thing about the dysfunction is like, wow. First of all, you've got to be able to fire people. Whether they're volunteers or staff, doesn't matter. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they need to work out some things on their own before they can really contribute to the organization. The organization is not the place to work out your psychological issues.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, when there's conflict, and there always will be conflict, the important thing to remember is don't take it personally. Mm-hmm. And if you've got people who cannot avoid taking it personally, really attacking each other and all that, they need to go. Mm-hmm. No matter how important they are to the organization. They're destroying it at the moment. They need to come back when they're saner.
Yeah, I think that nonprofit tracks kind of the best and worst in people in terms of, you join a nonprofit because you're very passionate about whatever the mission is. When your ego gets involved and you kind of like place your importance, like everything is personal, it's like, well, you're not serving the mission, you're not serving the community. And I agree, like people should be more willing to just take a step back and say, not right now, maybe later. This actually, I think, leads into this other point around the bi plus movement as a whole, because things feel a lot different now than they did in the 90s. I mean, the 90s gave bi plus folks a lot. We got the flag, we got Celebrate Bisexuality Day, we had a number of dynamic organizations, and now there seems to be just a lot more emphasis on visibility and convincing people that we exist again. But what do you see as the differences between the 90s and now?
Well, I don't do much now. I mean, the only activism I do now is as a part of the Pride Employee Resource Group at DocuSign, where I work. And DocuSign is very committed to diversity, and also to some extent at Princeton University, which has an amazing commitment. And many of the leaders of Princeton University are queer. I mean, the provost, the second highest official, is a woman married to a woman. I could go on about all the executives there who are part of our community. So I don't really have a good sense of what's going on in the bi movement. I mean, I'm just not plugged in. But I think I would say there's a lot today that we have to be grateful for that we're blind to, right? I mean, even though, okay, maybe some people say we don't exist, I doubt that it's as bad as it was when I was in my early 20s. I mean, there were so many times the gay people told me, no, you're not bi. It's just a phase you're going through. I'm sure that happens today. But the thing is, there was nothing to go on the way there is now, right? People know about the out bisexuals in history and in current media. I mean, you've got people like Charles Blow, columnist in the New York Times, out bisexual man. There's so much you can grab onto.
Yeah. I can see that. We have so much more language around things, and language is so important. It's just weird to see the pendulum swing back towards, Pride this year was really rough for a lot of bi plus people around the country, and which happens in times of crisis when marginalized groups get rightfully scared. Everyone is kind of an enemy, and you turn on each other, and bi plus people are seen closest to straight, and therefore there's like animosity there. Speaking of my own experience, something that's been really frustrating is just not having enough new people come into the movement and get involved. There's plenty of folks who've been a part of the movement for a long time, but it's like, okay, well, for sustainability purposes, you got to get new people involved in all of this.
Well, to me, the bright spot is the colleges and universities. Today there are so many more groups and centers and all of this at so many. If you talk to Robin Oakes, she speaks 50 times a year, mainly at colleges and universities and some corporations. I think one of the things to recognize is it's not so horrible now because we have built institutions and we have built our spaces within institutions. And yes, there's an effort to destroy all that, but there's so much of it that it's going to take a long time to destroy it all.
I love how much you're speaking to the importance of looking at how much we have gained and all of these resources that are definitely a lot more readily available. But when we speak about these organizations and the history that we have gone through with them, why do you think that so many bi plus orgs burn out or fold or dissipate?
That's a very good question. I think part of it is that while bis are maybe half or more of the queer community, those of us who are out are a much smaller proportion than with, say, gays or lesbians or trans. In some ways, it's easier to be in the closet as a bi and still have the life you want for some people, right? For a lot of people. So that hurts us. And also, oppressed people are oppressed, and there's more dysfunction among oppressed people because the whole society doesn't get you, doesn't support you, right? So there's a lot of that kind of trauma. In the gay and lesbian community, there's a lot of wealthy people who are out or donate and all this stuff. And in the bi community, we have we had one person, Fritz Klein, who bequeathed a huge pot of money to American Institute of Bisexuality, I think. But that's it. We're the other wealthy funders of our movement.
It doesn't help that we are more likely to live under the poverty line than lesbian and gay and straight folks. But I hear what you're saying. It's just funding is a big part of why things fizzle. And the BRC before COVID had a part-time staff person, and that was a big reason why we were getting a lot of things done. Shout out to Jessica Podkalicki. Thank you for all you did for the Resource Center. But after she moved on to greener pastures, we just, let's not fill the space, and we lost our physical space. And it's just damn, imagine if we'd had enough money to hire someone new or to keep her or to still have this office space. And in the time that we have left together, I want to think about the future. And part of resisting erasure is the money, but it's also creating a legacy and empowering the next generation to take over the work. And something that we've noticed with quite a few bi plus organizations and publications is that the next generation isn't being called in and mentored. How are you envisioning the future? How can we fix that? How can we call in the next generation and prepare them to do this work for 30, 40, 50 more years?
Well, I think Robin Oakes has shown the way a lot, right? She's been doing that. She goes around and speaks to young people at universities and other places, and that helps. And also, I think there's a lot of folks like me in the bi community who used to be active, who are doing other things now mainly. And I think there are ways we can involve them in mentoring, and, we can set up programs that they can just plug into without having to put in lots of effort. So I'd say make use of our elders.
So you're saying we can put you to work, Barry?
Well, as we're talking, the idea that I'm getting is, maybe I could consult the BRC on fundraising.
I think that'd be a great idea. We need that knowledge.
Yes.
And speaking of knowledge, do you have any advice that you would like to offer a younger activist or aspiring activist listening in?
Sure. So number one, don't take it personally. When you work at a job where they're paying you, right? I think a lot of people understand that you have to bring your self-esteem to the job. You can't try and get all your self-esteem from the job. And so ideally, you should look at your participation in bi plus community the same way. You're going to bring your self-esteem. You're not going to be dependent on the organization for that. And if it helps, if you get validation, that's great. But you can validate others. So that's one thing. Also, I have this one-line poem that I wrote. there is more love in your heart than there are children in the world.
I like that.
So just keep in mind the enormous resources you have within you, right? I mean, it's kind of a different version of it gets better. It's already better when you look inside yourself and realize, no, there's not just trauma. There's tremendous resources and resilience and love.
Thank you, Barry.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Barry. This has been such an amazing conversation down memory lane, lined with all of these organizations and key moments in history. This has been honestly a true delight and a true pleasure. What should we be on the lookout next from you?
I don't know. I mean, I'll talk to Bailey about BRC. As I said, my bi organizing is now within my company, so I'm not doing stuff publicly on that. I'm actually more focused on like, how can we save our country?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. It's all interconnected.
And I really like DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, for one thing, because they have this ability to have conversations with people who disagree and come to agreement on actions to take and actually get people talking in a civil way. And that's great. And they have a lot of local focus. They do a lot of great local projects. So in Chicago, anyway, they're focused on two issues, on immigration and trans rights and bodily autonomy.
Well, definitely be on the lookout for your consulting with the BRC.
I'm going to hold you to that, Barry.
Well, we could explore it. I'm not going to commit
All right,
to
I'm
it.
good. I'm not pressuring you in anything. We're just going to talk.
Just talking.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Barry. It was such a delight to hear your stories and your perspective. Thank you for embodying the bisexual killjoy spirit and all the work that you have done and are continuing to do. We are here today as a Bi Plus movement, thanks to people like you and everything that you have done so far. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy.
Thank you for tuning into Bisexual Killjoy, where we know that bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. To support us, share us with your friends, family, enemies. Subscribe to our Substack and rate our podcast preferably 5 stars. We want to hear from you as always. You can share your stories with us on Instagram or via email at bisexualkilljoy@gmail.com. We would love to answer your questions in our advice column. Give it to me by Plus. So check out the Substack for more details on that. And until next time, keep being a bisexual killjoy.
Stay bisexual and stay strong.